What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So there's been a lot of talk around the PlayStation 5 online, specifically around the price increasing across the world. But it looks like something else is going on with the system after a new model was spotted with the very interesting change that has people asking a lot of questions. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about another studio that Sony has now purchased, just not exactly what fans were expecting. And we're also going to be talking about Nintendo's next big event that's now being rumored online, showing that September should be a lot of fun. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Hangar 13 and Mafia. You know, it's been 20 years now for the series. There was an entire interview that was posted up over on their website celebrating 2 decades of the series. And as they're going through several questions around the history with developers, they had one final thing to ask. We can see this posted up where they say, lastly, can you tell us anything about what's next for the Mafia franchise? They respond, I'm happy to confirm we've started work on an all-new Mafia project. While it's a few years away and we can't share anything more right now, we're really excited to keep working on this beloved franchise and entertain our players with new stories. So, I mean, this is exciting because the Mafia Definitive Edition, it was pretty good. It's a remake of the first Mafia. It came out, I thought, at a good price. It was like $40, which I think lined up with the overall game length, but the quality was there. So I completely recommend that. If you have not checked it out, certainly worth doing so. And there are rumors around this being a prequel for the series, like I guess even before that. So that could be pretty cool. I mean, we had Mafia 3, then they did like the trilogy pretty recently, tying it all together. So I'm excited to see what's next for Hangar 13 with the Mafia series, but it does sound like it's gonna be a little while before we hear more. Also, the Kickstarter for Armed Fantasia and Pennyblood did go live yesterday. And in fact, it looks like funding's going pretty well for them, where they have like a 30-day time period to try to get all of the money together and funded. They're already over $450,000 at the time of this recording, and it's a pretty lengthy write-up and pitch overall. There's a lot to go through here, especially if you're curious about some of the ins and outs as to how they're going to be developing this game, screenshots, a bunch of information, stretch goals, the whole thing. And then they also shared some of their insights and thought process going forward when it comes to porting and what platforms they'd be supporting. We can see this posted up over on their Kickstarter. They said, we've heard some horror stories of creators promising to release their games on platforms and not being able to deliver. We want to start off on the right foot by being open and transparent in addressing how we want to handle porting of these games. If our console stretch goal is reached, then we will release both games on current gen hardware, that being PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC, but we'll tentatively offer an option for backers to select Nintendo as their platform of choice in hopes that new hardware becomes available during production. They say if that doesn't happen with Nintendo, then they'll reach out to the people who request a Nintendo platform and try to work things out there. But it kind of makes sense because if you look at their estimated delivery date, it's March 2025, and most people think there will be some sort of new Switch hardware by then, whether it's a refresh with more powerful hardware in general or just a next-gen system that they can target. So that's more or less why they're going along with that. It is hard to believe that we would have this Switch still 3 years from now, but who knows? Anyway, looking good there for the Kickstarter. Make sure you check it out and see what you think of Armed Fantasia and Pennyblood. Oh, and it wasn't too long ago that we heard that Embracer Group was going to be acquiring basically all of the Western studios from Square Enix, and now it appears it's official. We can see this posted up by Embracer Group. We're happy to announce the completion of the acquisition of Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and soon to be renamed Square Enix Montreal. The companies will form the 12th operative group under the leadership of Phil Rogers. A warm welcome to all new colleagues. That was pretty fast, it feels like, that they got all of this inked and done. Seems like Square was, about ready to get rid of those studios and pass all of that along to Embrace Group, which, I mean, it's over 1,000 employees that they're offloading there, and obviously a bunch of different intellectual properties. And now we can kind of see what Embrace Group's plans are. I mean, I don't think, like, tomorrow we're gonna see all the older Deus Ex games just like get ported and pop up right on like presentations and stuff like that. Still gonna be a little bit of time, but I wouldn't be shocked if in a couple of years we do start to see some of these older intellectual properties that Square just kind of forgot about start to get pushed to all current platforms. So it's at least interesting to see what Embracer Group is gonna be doing now with these different Western branches from Square Enix. But yeah, the deal's done, and now I guess we'll see what's next for Embracer Group and who they're looking to acquire then. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get to the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this new PlayStation 5 model that has now been identified in Australia. It's also going to Japan. It looks like it's going to kind of coincide with that price increase that's starting September 15th, but images of the manual for this system have started to appear in Australia after people were able to get their hands on the disc-based system as well as the all-digital PlayStation 5. We can see this posted up by pressstart.com. It says, we've been able to identify both the CFI 1202B, that's the digital console, and then the 1202A disc console that were purchased from Australian stores including EB Games, Harvey Norman, and JB Hi-Fi in the last week or so. The only immediate difference between this model and the 2021 model that we can work out from both product manuals is the weight, which has gone down by a similar jump from 2021. Remember, that actually had a lighter system then by several hundred grams, and we found out they took a lot of that weight from the heatsink. That was a whole thing on its own there, but they say the digital PS5 is 200 grams lighter, so 500 grams lighter than the original launched digital PlayStation 5, and the disc-based system, that's the 1202A, is 300 grams lighter, so that would have it be then 600 grams lighter than the original disc-based PS5, because remember, it had already gotten lighter with the revision from 2021, now getting even lighter here. And the interesting comparison that's brought up now is this 1202 disc-based PlayStation 5 weighs the same as the launch digital PlayStation 5 from just a couple of years ago. So that's pretty quick to get to a position where it's that light compared to launch. And it does make you immediately think, did they pull this out of the heatsink? And I mean, yeah, it's very possible that they are continuing to shrink down the amount of copper that they are using in order to cool the PlayStation 5, because when they did that initial shrinking of the heatsink where they kind of redesigned it a bit, there wasn't really any adverse effects. I mean, Digital Foundry had an entire video showcasing any frame rates, really taxing situations in games, temperature checks, all this, and didn't really affect it at all. In fact, there were some cases where the newer one even ran a little cooler at times, and there are ways they can get around that as they work to redesign it, and I figured this would happen. What's interesting, though, is this is how I thought they would have lowered costs overall. Like when it comes to the raw materials used with copper and stuff, yeah, especially now, that can get pricey as you're trying to figure out any way possible to lower the price of creating these systems. You would think of redesigning even, right? Like trying to figure it out that way rather than raise prices. However, Sony has raised prices and now they're also redesigning the inside of the PS5. I don't think this is going to have any adverse effects for the system. Like, I don't necessarily believe this one is worse than the launch or even the most recent revision that they did, but it is something to at least keep in mind. I guess the one nice part is it's getting lighter. It is interesting that they are technically slimming the PlayStation 5 down, just not the way we were necessarily hoping. Next up, let's talk about a new studio acquisition that Sony announced yesterday, and it wasn't exactly what people were expecting. You see, obviously, the studio acquisitions like Bungie or Insomniac Games, Haven Studios, and now we see them acquiring a studio that is known for making mobile games for cell phones. We can see this over on PlayStation Blog, or this from Herman Holst saying, today we announced that we have entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Savage Game Studios, a hugely talented team of creatives with many years of experience making some of the most popular mobile games enjoyed by players around the world. They were founded a few years ago with the goal of fearlessly exploring bold new ideas, and they turned it over to the CEO there. They had kind of a little statement here as to how they're going to work really hard to deliver for PlayStation Studios and all of this. But then they come back to Herman Holst, and the other like paragraph that's written here is interesting. It basically says, as we assured you before with our fans to bring select titles PC, our efforts beyond console in no way diminish our commitment to the PlayStation community, nor our passion to keep making amazing single-player narrative-driven experiences. They go on to basically put over all of their recent releases and everything. It just seemed weird because they're just like trying to reassure people that they're not getting away from the PlayStation console. They say our mobile gaming efforts will be similarly addictive, providing more ways for more people to engage with our content and striving to reach new audiences unfamiliar with PlayStation and our games. Now, Savage Game Studios is basically going to work to bolster their PlayStation Studios mobile division, which is the big initiative and big push into the mobile game or cell phone sector, right? And it's been very lucrative overall for any company that's been able to figure it out, specifically with gacha games. And Sony, they've actually been making mobile games for a long time now, even with PlayStation intellectual properties that you may really like. For example, God of War did have a mobile game. Like, this was back in 2007 or so. I think they built it on like JavaScript for like older phone. Well, thinking about it now, older phones. Back then, it was cutting edge stuff. That's when we were like flipping our phones open with keyboards and all of this. They've done stuff with Uncharted before, Sackboy, and in fact, there's apparently another Sackboy game heading to mobile phones here as just a trailer leaked out randomly and started to make the rounds. But the one that's been the most successful for Sony wasn't even created by Sony's gaming division. It was actually published by Sony Music Division, that's Fate Grand Order, and it's accrued over $5 billion in its time. And people really seem to get addicted to these gacha games like Fate Grand Order, and typically you don't need too many people, what they're called like whales, to really hold up one of these games and have them rake in tons and tons of money. So this just seems to be another initiative Sony has in order to continue to just create money. I mean, they move stuff to PC, does really well, makes them hundreds of millions of dollars that they didn't have before, and then we like to assume that they would take that and work to create, as they say, narrative-driven single-player experiences. And hey, I guess if the mobile division is able to create billions of dollars or something like Grand Order, then yeah, go for it, why not? I'm curious how they're gonna tackle this. Will it like be just games, like, or will it be gacha games? Like, I don't think they're gonna take God of War and move it to phones. There'll be some mobile phone or mobile game twist to it that would keep you spending over and over again, and that's just kind of the way it is and how the market accepts things. Nintendo tried to go against the grain with Mario Run. Didn't work. So then they went like full-on free-to-play mechanics with microtransactions and all that. That's kind of how I expect Sony to go as well, but I guess we'll see at some point when they're ready to release maybe one of their larger PlayStation IPs again as a mobile game. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo's next big event that is now being rumored online. I thought this was obvious to a lot of people, and maybe it is, but many were sending me messages about this wondering what I thought of it, and that's the idea of a Nintendo Direct coming up here pretty soon. I thought a little bit about this, and I said, you know what? It has been a weird year. There was no E3 Direct, so people are wondering, wait, does that mean that there's not going to be a fall Direct? Maybe there's just nothing really scheduled or planned out for the rest of this year, and they're gonna move right into 2023 and kick things off then in the first month or two. Well, it does look like, yes, there is a Direct that is being expected, and in fact, it's basically being outright said by many people. For example, you can see this from Nate saying, yes, a Direct is set for September. We joked about it a bit on the podcast as well. There were some other hints and teases and stuff just kind of thrown in there for fun, but yeah, based on what's going around right now, I can tell you it appears that a Direct is inbound, which is exciting because we had a general Direct, it feels like forever ago. It was earlier in the year, right? Was that February or something? And since then, we had a partner showcase and we had some random reveals here and there, but nothing big, not like that big general Direct. We come together and we're like, all right, Nintendo's gonna start just dropping all these games and getting people excited for the platform here going in the next like 6 to 8 months. Like they like to keep things generally close to that Direct date. I know sometimes we get like Breath of the Wild 2 and it's like, wow, it's been a long time since they officially announced and revealed that, and don't even get me started on Metroid Prime 4. So yeah, you're gonna hear more and more about this as we go along here, since people are even starting to spot things that are just getting maintenance done today, actually. This was over on Fama boards where people spotted 4 or 5 different unnamed games that are on Nintendo's database right now for the Switch that are seeing updates, almost like they're being prepared either for a reveal where the pages go live, or who knows, maybe a shadow drop, as Nintendo likes to do that as well. And you're gonna see a lot of like leaks and rumors and stuff get pushed out there for this Direct, and we'll do a predictions video here whenever Nintendo's ready to announce it. I was trying to like look through September and just take a fun guess, and you can guess the Direct as well down in the comments, as we like to do getting closer to the expected date for it. I'm going to go with September 14th, so a couple of weeks from now, but it should be exciting when we get into September because I'm expecting Nintendo to talk, and I'm actually expecting Sony to talk as well, so it should be a bunch of stuff getting revealed and a lot of news to go over, so looking forward to it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a game that came out today, but reviews did go live yesterday. That's for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection. When this was revealed, it was very exciting because they're packing in a lot of the older games that I really enjoyed, those classic arcade beat-em-ups from the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, even just the arcade itself, into one package. Well, we can see this post up on Metacritic for the PlayStation 5 version, sitting at a 78. It has the most reviews right now with 21. I noticed the Switch version with like 10 reviews is at 85, but it seems for the most part, people are pretty happy with this collection. It just seems to come down to, and it's very weird to say this, if people like the games, I mean, I feel like if you're getting into the Cowabunga Collection, you kind of understand what these titles are, but I mean, hey, if you've never played them, I would assume this is a good introduction to the series, as from what I can tell with the reviews, people say that the emulation is good. There's a lot of stuff you can kind of go through for these different games, like the concept art. There's like an entire, like, it's kind of like a museum or theater sort of set up there for the different games. You can see like Atomics with a 92 saying, there is no doubt Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection is one of the best collections we've seen in a year, where this type of package has been a complete success. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Metro Games Central giving it a 60, saying one of the best retro compilations ever made for a collection of games that, despite the nostalgia, really don't deserve the attention. Oh, that's harsh words for Turtles in Time and Hyperstone Heist. Anyway, the split currently is 16 positive, 5 mixed, no negative, and that makes sense. As long as the emulation's good, I think these games stand up pretty well even now, especially after playing Shredder's Revenge, which is an absolute blast to play. Yeah, I'm ready to go back to some of these older Ninja Turtles games and go through them, especially like Hyperstone Heist that I didn't really get a chance to play that much. I played Turtles in Time like crazy, but I would like to go back and check out Hyperstone Heist again. That was like a rental at a friend's house over a weekend, so yeah, I didn't get a lot of time with it, but this time I will. I'm picking this one up today and checking it out. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, have you played any of Sony's previous or current cell phone games before? 94% just say no, and that's kind of the expected response here. This just tells me, yes, there is a large audience out there that Sony can tap into when it comes to exposure and revenue. I mean, that's the biggest reason they're doing this. That's why they're moving stuff to PC. There's hundreds of millions, potentially with cell phone involved here, billions of dollars that they can just find, right? They will have to develop like the cell phone games essentially from the ground up. But there's one other thing to consider here. It's possible that this PlayStation launcher or PlayStation app that is seemingly in development with all the job listings and everything we're finding in like data mining for current PC ports, that's something that could actually go to phones as well. So maybe this is a way for them to tie everything together, one large ecosystem. Phones, their PC, and your PlayStation system. Something to think about maybe 10 or 15 years down the line for Sony. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Edit Name, saying, I think these investors are pushing to raise it, not just asking. That's also a good point. There's pressure that can be put on, depending on the question you're asking. It's like, hey, shouldn't you be raising the PlayStation price as well? You've moved all these cameras up and we want more money. So let's get that PlayStation price up too. But there is a balance there because, I mean, the stock still dropped for Sony after the announcement, and yeah, it's kind of a PR hit for them, and that's probably one of the reasons. There's a concern that maybe PlayStation 5s will slow in terms of the demand for it with the price going up. I don't think that's going to be the case because we sort of understand that Sony is getting ready to show games, and if there's one thing that sells systems, it's games. If you have games that people want to play, they'll typically figure out a way to get your console at some point. So it's a short-term hit, I think, for the stock for what could be long-term success, considering the games they show are at least really good, as we sort of have come to expect from Sony with that kind of high-quality bar that's in place. But I guess we'll find out probably in the coming weeks in September. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the PlayStation 5 that just keeps getting lighter with these new models. Do you think eventually it'll just become a PlayStation 5 Slim in the next year or two? And then also, what about Nintendo's next big event? What are you excited to see at this next General Direct that is rumored to be taking place here in the next couple of weeks? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.